Shabbat Shalom. Moments of transition often represent moments of danger. Judaism has long recognized this in our liturgy and our holiday cycles. We ease the transition from one year to the next, reminding ourselves of the fragility of life, dressing in white, making amends with those we've hurt, reminding one another to live our best lives. We ease the transition from one season to the next by maintaining the agricultural themes of our holidays and connecting on Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, to the cycles of the moon. We ease the transition even from one day to the next by adding prayers of protection, like Hashkivenu we prayed tonight, and by waking with an entire routine of blessings that demonstrate our gratitude for returning to wakeful life. And it shouldn't surprise us that Jews have long focused on these moments of transition, because to some extent we Jews have always been a people on the move, a people in transition. Our most ancient story of journey is our story of leaving Egypt, hurriedly, guided by the Eternal who heard the pain and suffering of our enslavement. In the times of the destruction of the first temple, we wandered again, traveling as far as Babylon, where the prophet Jeremiah offered God's words of consolation and comfort to us, telling us, build homes, live in them, plant gardens, eat their fruit, marry, have children, multiply, seek the welfare of the city to which you have been dispersed. For in its peace will you find peace and wholeness and shalom. Centuries later, after our people had returned and rebuilt the temple, well, the Romans destroyed it, and we dispersed yet again, continuing our journey far and wide. We held fast to our tradition of learning. We wrote our entire corpus of the Mishnah and the Talmud, and we clung to our communities in our new and uncharted terrain. Through the Middle Ages, we made our homes and built our communities in diverse and distant lands, learning from other cultures, leaving a mark of our own on theirs. And when we were no longer welcome, whether that was in the Arabic-speaking countries and lands of the ancient Middle East, or in England, Spain, Eastern Europe, Greece, you name it, we continued on our journey. In fact, just in case we ever could have forgotten that we are a people on the move, we built that journeying, that wandering, into our very name and the name of our holy language. When we call ourselves Hebrews, and when we speak Hebrew, Ivrit, we are Ivrim, we are Hebrews. We are calling ourselves the ones who over, who cross over, the ones who pass through, over, from one place to another. And so over more than 2,000 years, we have actually coded that wandering, that journeying and that transition, that movement. We've coded it into our spiritual DNA. I'm thinking about that aspect of our identity tonight for a number of reasons. On a personal level, of course, this evening marks a new step in my journey here at Congregation Kol Ami. Over the past 6 weeks since I was ordained a rabbi, I have been in a period of crossing over, of transition, of ivrim, so to speak, passing from one phase to another in this sacred partnership. And despite having served as your student rabbi, I would be lying if I said the unknown didn't accompany this transition. I ask myself questions. How will our relationships change and grow as we enter this new phase? How can we make the best use of this precious opportunity? How can we ensure that this partnership lives up to its potential? Of course, I can't answer these questions alone. I will continue to need your voices and your partnership and your friendship as we try new things, as we expand our outreach and engagement efforts, and as we continue to learn and grow as a community. We are on this journey together, and it gives me incredible joy and pride to begin this chapter with a community like this. But of course, on another level, I'm thinking of the wandering and journeying aspect of our Jewish identity tonight because it has so much to teach us at this moment in time. We are the people of the perpetual journey. We are the wanderers who spent 40 years in the desert. We are the seekers of new opportunities time and again, century after century. The people who tried to live the value of kindness to strangers because we too were strangers in Egypt. And of course, as we sit here tonight, praying in the safety of this sanctuary we call home, we know that over 2,000 children are currently being held by the U.S. government, separated from their families at the border due to a new policy of this presidential administration. Like many of you, I imagine, this development in the national climate has caused me alarm. And, at the end of the day, it should cause us alarm as Jews. We should be worried for the children who must feel afraid and uncertain of their future along their journeys. We are wanderers too. How could we not empathize with the parents' anxiety or fear for the safety of their children, who they brought along on their perilous journeys in the hopes of a brighter future? We are wanderers too. And certainly it's no surprise that this issue has united the Jewish community across the denominational spectrum: secular, Orthodox, Reform, conservative, everyone in between. It's united us like few other issues can, because we are wanderers too. Now, let me be very clear. Reasonable people may have disagreements about the state of immigration in the U.S. or the proper policies to pursue in reforming our immigration system. But when policy disagreements turn into moral bankruptcies, we cannot remain silent. And like many of you, my stomach sinks even further when I realize the insidious calculation that seems to lie behind this policy choice, which seems designed to stoke the flames of partisan bickering and xenophobic fear, rather than treating all those seekers and wanderers and journeyers at our border as the human beings that they are, no less deserving of respect and love and kindness than any one of us. So as I've read about these events over the past couple of weeks, of course I've been reminded of our journeys, and I've felt called to action. This week in particular, our Torah portion too calls me to action. One of the few Torah portions named after a person who is not Jewish, we meet the Moabite prophet Balak this week, a cleric tasked with cursing the people Israel as we camped on the border. As the story goes, the Moabite king Bilam, in fear of the Israelites' numbers, sent Balak to curse us. Balak goes on his journey with a very famous talking donkey. I'll let you read that part for yourself. But of course, God intervenes, sending an angel to stop him and eventually turning the very words of curse that foreign king would have for us camped on his border into some of the most beautiful words of blessing in our tradition. This week, our Torah portion is reminding us that when we too sat at the border, the only fitting words were words of praise. How good are your tents, O Jacob. Ma tovu, O halecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How lovely are all those places you dwell, people Israel. And I wonder how lucky we were that sitting on that border, our ancestors did not have their children separated from their parents, from our parents. Nearly 40 years into our wandering, we had already been traumatized enough. First by our centuries of enslavement, later by the battles and the trials of the wilderness. No, as we sat on the border of the promised land, being separated from our children might have been the last straw. It might have been the trauma that held us back once and for all, keeping us from entering our promised land. So tomorrow morning, I'll be joining with the Jewish Center for Justice before the Families Belong Together rally in downtown LA. We're meeting at 10 a.m. in Grand Park at Broadway, just up the park from City Hall. And the reason we're meeting at 10 instead of when the rally begins at 11 is because we want to make sure that we Jewish supporters had a chance for some spiritual refreshment of our own on Shabbat. We couldn't not be part of this opportunity in the broader community, but we also had this feeling of needing to do something for our own spirits on our day of rest. So we'll sing together and hopefully enjoy some spiritual renewal before we join arms in an act of political resistance. Our history as wanderers calls me to lend my voice. Our tradition teaches that curses can in fact be turned to blessings, and that calls me to lend my voice. This very congregation, with our history of being literally a voice to the people, Kol Ami, on matters of social justice and equality, you too call me to lend my voice as I mark this moment of transition into my new role of service. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow. But whether or not you can make it downtown, I hope that you'll find the parts of our story that call you to action. I hope you'll share them with us, and I hope you'll come along with us as we continue in our sacred wanderings. Shabbat Shalom.